Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to another episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question really comes from Lucifer, and it is, do you think that Thatcher needs to get the SMG-11 as a secondary? He is the only SAS without access to it. So I noticed that a lot of people upvoted this question. Clearly, there are many of you out there that like the idea of giving him access to the secondary, but honestly, I don't really know if it's all that necessary. Yes, I would agree that Thatcher isn't as good as he was when the game first came out. When the game was new, he was practically a must pick. You would need a Thermite and a Thatcher to get through reinforcements. They were like peanut butter and jelly. But as time has progressed and the game has evolved, so has the player base and different strategies. Players have discovered verticality is a great way at taking care of bandit batteries and mute jammers. You don't even need a Thatcher in those situations. Maverick was introduced a couple of seasons ago, who was kind of a substitute in some situations to deal with those kind of gadgets, or just simply get through a reinforcement. You don't even need to have that combo anymore. And then people are just flat out just getting better with Twitch. And so you put all those together, Thatcher's usefulness over the years has kind of diminished. That being said though, I still feel like he's a solid operator. He's able to deal with a wide variety of traps. Legion is honestly one of the best operators in the game right now. You see him almost every game. He's one of the best counters to Legion, so you can get onto the objective. He's able to deal with Capcan, Ella. Like, he's still a viable operator. He's just not a necessity, which honestly I think is a good thing. We don't want to have operators get to the point where they are a requirement every single time, and I think that Thatcher is in that place. On the other hand, though, giving him access to the SMG-11 may not really be all that big of a deal. If we take a look over at Mute, for example, kind of a case in point, ever since he got access to the secondary, yeah, you see him a little bit more. I don't have the stats to back this up, but I wouldn't say that his pick rate has skyrocketed or his win rate. Like, yeah, he's a little bit better, but it isn't anything crazy, and that would probably be the same for Thatcher. And so let me know what you guys think on this. Do you think that all of the SAS operators should be uniform, or all of them have access to the SMG-11? It's kind of like, why not at this point? Make them all the same. Or do you think that Thatcher is in a good place, or would you like to buff him in other capacities? Let me know down below in the comments. The next question is, what do you think about having a bolt-action sniper operator introduced into Rainbow Six Siege who has special rounds that can pierce through reinforced walls? I have been getting this question a lot lately. I'm not entirely sure why, and I think we even answered this in a previous Mailbox episode like a couple years ago, but the reason why I've never been sold on this idea is that I think that an operator like this would be either be overpowered or underpowered. I don't know if there would be much of a middle ground. Because you're using one of these really high-powered weapons that has a very slow RPM, a bolt action, of course, is going to take you a while to get another round ready to go. That means either you hit them and you one-shot them, or you hit them in the chest and you don't one-shot them. If it's one or the other, either that's crazy because one shot to the body is a lot easier than, of course, hitting someone in the head, but if you're only getting a hit marker, or you know what I mean, the equivalent of it, and you're doing, let's say, even 90 damage, they're going to be able to take you out because of that very slow RPM. On top of that, I've never really been sold on the idea of having an operator that can pierce through wall reinforcements. You could argue that this would be a nice counter to bandit batteries and mute jammers. If you have a IQ on your team, there could be some synergy. The IQ pings the location of one of these gadgets, and then this new sniper class takes it out. So like, that would be kind of interesting, but the real reason why I don't like it is, what do you do as a defender in those situations? If he's not just simply trying to take care of the gadgets, he might just take a couple of shots set through said reinforcement to maybe get a lucky takedown. If you're now going against one of these players that is able to take you out through a reinforcement where you're now not able to retaliate, that doesn't sound like a fun gameplay experience. Rainbow Six Siege is exciting because there is that dynamic between offense and defense, and you're able to react to the situation around you. If someone is able to shoot you through reinforcement and you can't, there isn't a whole lot of interaction other than you just trying to run away and hope that he doesn't get a lucky headshot. And so all in all, it's for those very reasons why I just don't think that it would work in Rainbow Six Siege. I feel like the negative Nancy here because a lot of you clearly like the idea, because on paper it sounds awesome. Having a slow firing but powerful weapon sounds like it could be a really cool addition, but I really believe that it either be underpowered or overpowered, and so I just don't know that it would work, but of course that is just my 2 cents. The next question comes from KiloGamer, and it is, are you excited for Anthem? What is your opinion on it? I am cautiously optimistic for Anthem, more on the cautious end. I've always wanted to have a looter FPS that has really gripped me like other looter games, like Diablo or Path of Exiles, for example, and while I know that there is Destiny just really never has done it for me. And so one reason why I have my hopes up for this one is that not only does the gameplay look a lot more varied, it looks like they're kind of going for a tank and synergy system where you really have to rely on your teammates to be able to dish out a lot of damage. Unlike in Destiny, where you're only able to do the cool stuff like throw a nade, do a super every couple of minutes, it looks like in this game, you're just flinging rockets, you're just littering the ground and the enemies with all these different abilities that look incredible. On top of that, the actual class dynamic and the class system looks a lot more varied compared to something like Destiny. I know I shouldn't really be comparing the two, but it's kind of the easiest comparison. From what I've heard so far, it kind of mirrors what Diablo 3 is like, where you can play a mission on normal, challenging, brutal, and then it just gets harder and harder. The health of the enemies increases, their damage increases, and while I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, I think that that can eventually work, my hope is that as those systems increase, as those levels get harder, it's not just more damage and more HP. What I really want from these kinds of games is that the harder difficulty and the end game content, these video games and these looter games really thrive on the end game. If there isn't content there and there isn't challenging content, I really don't think it's going to be all that much of a success. The dream for me is that if I'm playing on a harder difficulty, the bosses are now doing different things. Maybe they add in a new attack pattern. Maybe they add in a couple more abilities that they didn't have access to in the normal version of that mission. That way, it's steadily ramping up. And also, it makes the game just feel like it's expanding in front of you. And so in general, I have my fingers crossed for Anthem. I'm not going to get my hopes up too much because I've been burned too frequent with EA lately, but I'm really hopeful that this is going to finally be that looter FPS that I've always wanted. The next question comes from Sam, and it is, what do you think about CanCan being able to trap hatches with a slightly longer animation? I gotta admit, the first time that I read this question, I thought it was pretty intriguing because while I don't think that CanCan is in a bad place right now, I think he's decent. Giving him a couple more places to place his traps and make the offensive team slow down and take their time didn't sound like the worst thing ever. But the more that I thought about it, the more I realized that this would be very situational, and I don't really know if it'd have that much impact on the overall game. First of all, I would imagine that you would need to open up the hatch to be able to place down his gadget, and that's where we start to run into problems. Usually, a lot of the hatches that offense is going to be jumping on down are directly above the objective. You want to reinforce those hatches. If you don't, and you're opening on up in the hopes that someone jumps on down and takes some damage, you're pretty much doing the job for the offensive team. You could have had it reinforced. You could have had a Kayed slowing down the Habana charges, for example, or just flat out taking them out, or just making it so by the end, they can't even get on through. If you just open it for them, you pretty much just did their job. On top of that, a lot of times, if someone does see a hatch on open and this change was implemented, many people aren't going to be fooled by it. They're going to be like, oh, that hatch is open. Why is it open directly above the objective? Let's see if there's any CanCan traps. Oh, it's right there. Thanks for that. Let's push on in and win the round. That's another reason. And while there could be some select situations where maybe on Consulate you could get a couple of the flanking hatches, there are some really great verticality on that map. Other than that, I just really don't see this being all that useful. And so all in all, while I really like this idea on paper, when I really started to think about it, I just don't know if it would add that much value to CanCan. And a lot of times, I think that it would probably be a waste of his gadget and honestly just give the edge to the offensive team, which of course is something that you want to avoid. The next question comes from Casey, and it is, what's your thoughts on Battlefield 5 reducing my squad members to 4 instead of 5? Personally, I think it's an odd change. Well, if I had to take a guess, it's probably because of two reasons. The main one being is that because they added in the new revive mechanic into Battlefield 5, where anyone in your squad, regardless if you're a medic, you can revive them and you can get their back up on their feet. And so if you had one extra person in your squad, that entire mechanic may have been too powerful. You wouldn't think that one extra guy could really be all that influential, but now it's harder to squad wipe. It's harder to be able to take every single one of them out because they're able to revive each other. And so it just may have been too much to deal with if you were on the receiving end. The other reason that I can think of is that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to have 5-man squads in a game that has servers where it's 32 versus 32. If everyone's in a full squad, by the end, that means you're gonna have 2 people left by them lonesome, just kind of out to dry. I remember in Battlefield 1 that would happen to me on occasion, and it kind of sucked when you were in that position. And so by reducing it down to 4, of course, then you're going to have 8 squads of 4, all full and hopefully working together. And so I do understand where you're coming from. If you started the Battlefield series or really got involved with it in Battlefield 1, where it was 5-man squads, if you had a group of friends all working together, you jump on over into Battlefield 5, you now have one guy that's the odd one out. And that does suck. So I get where you're coming from, but if I had to take a guess, it is for those reasons. But yeah, guys, that is what it for today's episode of Monday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Would you like to have a true, real sniper class introduced into Rainbow Six Siege? Why or why not? Let me know down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.